Thank you for coming to this lovely panel. We are happy to see you. And I would ask each of the guests to introduce himself and herself with few sentences. Enike?
Thank you very much. So second time, Enike Györfi from CH Robinson. So I joined the company 3 years ago as a regional sales manager for Central Eastern Europe. Who we are? An American logistic services provider company, third-party logistics. So almost the largest in the USA, hopefully also in Europe shortly.
Good. Thank you. Martin?
Okay, it looks like we are waiting for the full audience. Now. So, I'm representing the port of Antwerp-Bruges, the largest export port in Europe at the moment, after we merged with the Bruges, so 2 platforms in 1 port, and I represent the port in Central and Eastern Europe, in Poland, Slovakia, and Czech.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Petr Laňka from the company Metrans, and I'm representing the intermodal operator here in Central and Eastern Europe.
I'll make it very quick. Dmitry Over, Global Chief Commercial Officer of Acre Worldwide.
Hello, everybody. My name is Gil Bal. I'm Senior Business Manager, Supply Chain and Logistics at the Port of Rotterdam. And today I'm representing the Port of Rotterdam.
Good. I'm still Misha Svrčková from MSC Prague and Slovakia and Medlock Slovakia. So let's start. The name of the panel is Keep Cargo Moving When Everything Goes Wrong. Why we choose this panel is because all of you are somehow involved in this supply chain, be it as a client, final client, forwarder, NVO, BCO. And the last 2.5, 3 years were difficult for all of us. And we would like to explain you the way how we all from different companies see what happened, what we did, how we contributed, what we could do better, and maybe brainstorm together what to expect for the future. Because for sure what happened is that everybody now knows what is supply chain and how the shipping lines are involved in the supply chain. So let me start. This crisis has shifted the supply chain, and from being invisible part of our lives, it's definitely become an important part of our life, and everybody has been talking about the supply chain and its disruption over past 2.5 years. And it started from the breakfast to the dinner, and my question is to you. You are the lucky one to start. Do you think that change is here stays as companies recognize the role of whole supply chain and its role when something goes wrong? Do you think it will stay like that?
Well, I think, yes, you're right. It's been quite an interesting couple of years. I always said that I've been married 22 years. My wife finally knows what logistics is because it started affecting everybody. We're in the TV, we're in the press. It's good because it brings lots of visibility. I think what you mentioned, hopefully BCOs and shippers appreciate supply chain. It also comes with a risk. We've seen governments being involved in the supply chain, which is not always positive. We've seen the US with FMC impact, with the emerging detention regulation. So with any attention also comes a risk as well. And I think it's here to stay because for the first time the world have seen what logistics is and how important it is. And to some degree, we've been blamed fairly or unfairly for the recession that's coming in, at least part of it. So the attention is here to stay.
Yeah, thank you. Enike, what do you think? You cannot hear.
I couldn't catch the question.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, I can't hear the question.
The question is that over past 2.5 years, the supply chain itself and the disruption itself becomes so known that everybody who didn't even notice there is any logistic and supply chain which is influencing our daily lives, everybody knew it. As from the breakfast to the bedroom, we were discussing what happened, why we don't receive the bikes in the summer, when Ever Given happened, how come that the whole world has all of the sudden stopped, when the COVID stopped the vessel supply chain, we missed this winter season. So do you believe all of the sudden it seems that everybody know that there is a shipping, there is a logistic, there are the ports, there is a rail, which seems to be invisible in the past. Do you believe this will stay? This new world discovered by all of us and our people around us. Do you think it will stay like that, the attention?
Definitely. Definitely, and supply chain is getting more and more important. So even more than it was in the past.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Gilbert, what do you think as a port representative?
Totally agree. As already mentioned, having dinner with friends, being at parties, etc., everybody comes aware that logistics and supply chain is part of their daily life, and that will never change again. We had so many impressive moments, like the Suez Canal with the big ship, making sure that no other ships could pass it. You saw it on the news, and now, of course, with the ongoing situation in Ukraine, this is also hampering logistics and in all kinds of facets of matters. So for me, it will definitely will stay. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so, in a good and in a bad.
Correct.
And I think it's important that the world has realized that there is a supply chain behind all the consumption. Whatever it is, starting from the bikes to the sea, it's important to understand there are people and the processes behind. Some are good, some are bad, as we learned recently, but it's important to know. It's not just happening overnight, because let's be frank, in the past people thought that, okay, I go and I buy a bike because I like it. I want to have a new color. You went to the shop and you bought it. Okay, this was not the case. I mean, Petr knows, that's why I'm referring to the bike. He wanted to have a bike for incredible money you will not believe, and he could not spend it. This is it. This was the fact. So at least the world should be aware. But I'm not sure, as a shipping line representative, is that the shipping line took the right advantage to inform the world how important game they play in the whole supply chain. Because for the years we were quiet. We were just moving from port to port, sometimes to the hinterland, but we never stressed how difficult the role is for us, and of course how difficult we can make it for the clients. All of you, you had some, not that bad, I mean, some a little bit challenging experience over the past 2.5 years, and maybe we should even take more space to emphasize all these things which are hurting us, hurting you, and maybe we should also start to better communicate to the market what are the actions we took, what we tried to do to make it better, and what we wish you can do better for us. Anyway, let's move on. So when we think about of last 2.5 years, 3 years, the whole world has completely changed. From home office, I mean, who would believe that we can stay 1 year in the office with all the family, being teachers, cookers, doing the doing the work, and 4 people at home, 4 Wi-Fi's. I mean, who would believe? And the world didn't stop. It stopped for a moment, but it didn't stop. It kept on rolling. And the whole supply chain rules have changed. What was valid before is probably not going to last in coming years. So from your perspective, what were the biggest constraints and learnings out of it for you? Martin, I start with you.
What were the biggest constraints? I don't want to talk only on the behalf of the Port of Antwerp, because we all recognize that there was a change and the constraints were big. The change in the supply chain was significant in performance, unfortunately, because somebody who realized logistic before, the performance was a little bit different, and the people, the let's say large amount of people who realized that the supply chain has changed and there are the issues, that was the constraints of the supply chain that came up on the table, and people said, we have logistic here, and we need the logistic, we need the supply chain to be again let's say ready for production, ready to buy, ready to do other additional services. So the constraints were through whole the supply chain, and not only queuing in the port, but also in tracking, because we had the disruptions, not only evergreen in Suez, but also the other disruption of the war in Ukraine, of the Russian war. So that was all about the whole chain. It was not about the one part or the second. So we saw it in the through all the supply chain. And I think that despite of that, the constraints, the logistic has moved on top of the on top of the list of a lot of boards and managers in the manufacturers and other companies. So that is my point of view.
Interesting. Dmitry, would you share with us? You are coming from the most affected region, so I'm interested to hear your answer.
I think the largest challenge we have is figure out what to do with all that money we were making for 2 years.
I have few tips for you after this discussion.
I think to us as an industry, the largest challenge was really managing workforce. If you think in the last 2 years, each file now takes 3 times longer to process. We've been hiring like crazy. We cannot find people. We've been paying like crazy as well. And I think that now with the market changing in the last 90 days, we need to come back to 18 and 19. And I think it will be difficult for us as an industry to come back to the old days of the old margins and old productivity, because I think for 2 years, we did not look at the productivity and nothing. We were just trying to survive, trying to process files, trying to move. I think it's back to reality now, back to normal, whatever that normal is, 18, 19. How do we manage it with a partial work from home or full work from home? Because we need to come back to the way it was 18, 19.
Yeah. We just don't know how. What do you think?
Now, clear it. When we look at the disruptions, you could look at it from both sides, or I see 2 sides: the physical ones and the digital ones. That also came very clear that when you have got a physical disruption, it also led into a digital disruption, and that made it for the end customer very unclear. For example, what the status of the container was, and those are some learnings that we have to take for when it comes again, or when we come out of it, is that we have to focus on the customer and the customer experience within the supply chain, and then hopefully can do better in next time when it happens.
Yeah, I agree. Annika, what do you think? I know you are well experienced in air industry, so it would be nice also to share with us this part, because most of the people have the experience as well.
So I mean, we are looking back to a very challenging period what we had in the last 2 years, so across the board in the whole supply chain, no matter if we are talking about sea freight, air freight, trucking, or logistic services. But I think it was for everybody the time to rethink the whole supply chain, and also for us as logistic providers to talk more about solutions. And this was actually what we liked in the from the forwarding perspective, that we started to talk about solutions with the customers and not just about the price. So it was a learning period, and how we would do if it would come back again. I think might be not that much differently. Just we would be a bit more prepared.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe market is also more prepared. I mean, who would believe 3 years ago that you can stand it all and you still keep on selling? So at the end of the day, we all passed.
Yeah.
As from the final client to all of us. Petr, do you think that the market, the industry, did all what we could do from your perspective?
Yeah, that we must be prepared for all the supply chain must be already have the good and right timely information. I think we are no more online in the supply chain, and that is the most of the important thing, that we must receive and give the information more to other parts of the supply chain in the right time. One of the important things, I think.
Yeah, I agree. For me, what I must say, from shipping line perspective, what was the biggest surprise is that 3 years ago, do I have here Jarda? 3 years ago, one of my favorite clients grilled me every meeting that our punctuality is from 90 to 98% of the vessel punctuality, which is the case, it is true. And we were so proud of it, and he was laughing at us, and those days biggest shipping line was always a little bit slightly better than us. And then 1 year ago, April, the schedule reliability was 17%, 1-7. This was the fact. worldwide reliability of the vessels was 17%. And it worked. It was a drama, but nobody cared. If you arrived 1 week later, 10 days later, everybody was just praying, please, can you arrive with the vessel? What was also surprising, so it worked. And you know what? You paid triple than you paid before. This was the biggest joke ever, you know? When we had 98% punctuality, you didn't pay us at all. And I mean the whole market share. And then we fucked it up completely and you paid us so big money. That was really good time. Sorry, I have to say that loud. Although I have to mention the costs have increased dramatically by then. So don't worry, keep on paying. What was surprising, I think for most of the market, including our clients, and probably us as well, that when something wrong is happening in China, the effect is not in China, but it cascaded, goes through Europe to US and back. So you think when the China get rid of the problem is gone, but it's not true. That has been moving and the world has been blocked for the moment. The situation in USA where the vessels were calling the ports and they were waiting 3 weeks to get the window, and after 3 weeks you simply give it up. Because this is not that you park the vessel and you wait and it's free of charge. It doesn't work like that. So as a shipping line, we have to decide to stop calling the port for 1 month, not for 1 week. For 1 month, we could not call some ports because we were putting more vessels, more tonnage. We just created more drama. There was no one who could receive it. Then we breathed a little bit after the China. Europe was stuck for the moment. Evergreen happened. It's nothing too lovely, Evergreen. Hello, guys. Can happen, what happened to you? But everybody was blocked. Everybody was completely blocked. And then we were trying to find new routings, all of us. There was no shipping line who could do it better. Everybody did it as good as possible. And at a certain moment, we had to stop all the cargo moving through Suez or through Africa for 3 weeks. That means you didn't export anything for 3 weeks, but you also didn't receive the vessel for 3 weeks. And again, it has an effect to the equipment availability, to possibility to load another export. So everything went wrong just because of one place started the mission. And for me, it was quite surprising how huge effect this can have to complete supply chain. And of course, all of us, we reached the momentum when we realized that bottlenecks we were aware of, be it port limitations, rail infrastructure, capacities infrastructure, shipping lines having a special system which are not working properly, some of them like us dreaming of digitalization which does not exist, all of that materialize in the momentum and make it even worse. And this is what you were facing, because you had clients who were shouting at you, why I don't have my t-shirt for $12, and you were explaining them that this t-shirt will cost now $100, and they will see it next year. So this was the situation, and we all understood how difficult it is, and there was so little we could do, but we tried. And I think it's important that maybe we try to share with the audience what we try to do, how we try to help it, and where we saw the limits. I think this could be an interesting thing, and I would again start from the port this time. So Martin.
What was the question? Sorry. I was listening your speech.
No, my question is, because you represent Antwerp, which is the port we like, but it's also the port who is bottleneck since I remember, and there is hell of the cargo, but it's not moving. So what do you think the port did to make the situation, to improve the situation, and what do you think the port caused that the situation was not good enough?
Yeah, I think as you said the right thing. Everybody were doing a maximum, but couldn't do better. Yeah, in that period. Of course, there were certain points where we were trying to improve things, because it was time actually to push you to change something. And okay, we have a lot of potential on the rail. Everybody knows, because we have only 8%, for example, on the rail. So fortunately, the bottleneck was not on the rail, yeah? But there are a small percentage of rail used by Antwerp, and that was the bottleneck actually on the other side. So if we are ready at that time for more cargo to move on the rail, we will do even better, but we were not. So we came to the improvement. We try to do our maximum, and finally now it's going to be moved. Of course, the bottleneck what are according to the capacities at the terminals with the vessel callings and so on, that was somehow kept in the best case with the people, that they were still working, not having a lot of COVID issues as a port. As you said, one port could change when they stop for 1 month. And I think in Europe, the ports has done a very well done, because they didn't close the port, the operation, for one person being affected by COVID. So in this case, I think there was not really a good situation in our port, but we were trying to pick up the let's say lessons learned for the future, and to keep the risk assessment even more active than before. So we are trying to improve, especially on the rail, because we have been stuck with also the national railways capacities and letting the access for the others. And now, I don't know if you read the article, there was agreement between Infrabel, which is SŽ in Czech Republic, for example, so in Belgium, that they will leave open access to the port to any licensed operator. For now, there will be longer trains available to reach the port, and that is happening after all this disruption. So I
you
think
believe it helped? You believe that this situation helped to speed up this process, which was on the list anyway?
It is only one side of the of course picture. There are many pictures to be a puzzle finally.
Yeah.
But,
and for you, do you think the ports are gaining back the productivity they had before the COVID and all the supply chain disruption? Because we don't have this feeling.
That is a good question, and as a part of Rotterdam Authority, we thought it was good to have some insight on that. So via our website, you can go to a page where you can see the container delays from all the ports in Europe. So because we have to get away from the gut feeling and into the facts. And there was a lot of clients complaining, and we said, okay, good, but can you give us some information? No, it is our gut feeling. But we took it very seriously, and then we looked into how can we clarify it for the customer, and that is something that we're also promoting, to make information open. It is something that we are growing into anyway, and as a port authority, you are now able to see which port is doing best. And if it's not Port of Rotterdam, then it's our job to do it better again. But it is good for clients to see, to get to the facts instead of going back into the rumors. I must honestly say that in the last 2.5 years, as we have so many types of cargo via the Port of Rotterdam, containers is a big part of it, but please remember we are still the second largest oil hub in the world. So Shell, BP, Esso, a lot of goods are coming in from all kinds of segments. And in the end, we didn't do that bad, to be honest. So we got vessel delays. Not really doing that bad. Of course, it could have been better, but hey, if you got 20 ships coming after the Suez Canal, and most of them coming first to Rotterdam, then of course you will do your best to handle as much as possible, but you are limited to a certain amount of what you can do, and you cannot go over it in the end.
So what I hear is that even though you tried the best and you were trying to work on your, I would say, weakness, it was impossible for you to deal the situation when the number of vessels calling the port tripled or get 4 times more than was usual schedule. Because, I mean, the terminal is limited, the operations are limited. Did the lack of manpower influence the operations as well? Because during the COVID, we had, I would say, 30 to 40%.
No, in that total period, we didn't have any lack of manpower or any cranes being damaged or any personnel or out of order. So everything was really running 120%. And that was the maximum. More can we not do. So that was really the maximum that we did. And you have
Congratulations.
to imagine that, you can imagine that if every vessel first calls Rotterdam, as we are the #1 port on imports still, and then every ship wants to unload first at your harbor and then continue to other ports. So it was a big challenge for sure.
But you managed, so somehow...
Yeah, of course somebody will say, well, I had a delay of containers. Yes, of course. But there were not additional delays in the port of
You
Rotterdam.
try to limit them. Dmitry,
Yeah.
how do you see it as the one who was waiting for the container in the port? Do you have the feeling the ports did what they could do? Did they try their max? Or you see some room maybe as a suggestion for the future?
I think it's anything, excuse me, it's exposed our limitations. And I think it's, certainly if you look at the US, it's exposed a lots of things. It brought a lot of things to light, which everybody been talking for years, lack of infrastructure, lack of labor, bad union contracts. But I think also what the industry realized, lots of it is just moving too slow or cannot be changed. So we've seen nearshoring, we've seen alternative services, people start moving. If you look at the services, for example, from China to Europe on a rail, before Russian war, it's exploded. Simply because it was an easier way to avoid ports, because ports have limitations. I think also what it showed us in the last couple of years, also consignees get creative. You've seen the big box stores chartering vessels. Amazon started the airline. Amazon is starting the steamship line, starting forwarders. People get creative because I think everybody realized what limitations infrastructure has. And I think also everybody realized, at least in the US side, that it was so disjointed. States work separately, trucking regulations separate from the ports. You have all parts of the same process that work completely separate.
Yeah.
And in Los Angeles, they created a situation that nobody wants to buy new trucks because in 3 years, you cannot drive diesel trucks in Los Angeles. Trucking operations just stopped buying trucks. Well, how are you going to move containers if containers have to move on the chassis? Apparently, they decided there's no point to talk to each other. I think that is coming back. They start cooperating better. Hopefully, it's get better. But infrastructure is infrastructure. Space limitations, environmental regulations. There's only so much you can do. So I think we, as an industry, will see more and more shift towards near sourcing, towards other solutions instead of just trying to keep expanding ports that really, I don't know how much land you have.
Well, we have
Yeah.
still got a lot of lead left, but we are fortunate that we have got 2 or 3 companies interested for each plot that we still have got open. But yeah, also there comes a limitation. But for me, the takeout of this whole situation has to be that communication is key. In the last 3 years, we increased the amount of round trips via the port of Rotterdam over 100 in rail connections, mainly to Italy, a lot to Poland, some also from matrons increased, which we are really fortunate to also
No,
hear.
this is overall discussion. You will do promo after this with all the clients.
I
so
do.
Don't overdo it. A
But
little
was
bit you can, but don't overdo
but
it.
it was really, but it was, but you see that we didn't add any rails. It was done on the same amount of rails which we already had. So that's a good thing about logistics. We are getting smarter.
Yeah, you
We are-
used your assets better, so you
exactly.
obviously had
Yeah.
the room to do it better. And I think all of
Exactly.
us, we have realized there was a room to get more efficient. Because
Yeah.
in the lazy days, you are not forced to be efficient. In trouble days, you try to find solution because
Correct.
you are forced to do so. But at the same time, I believe you agree with me. We all know there are some changes needed, and you know it better than us. And it didn't happen 3 years ago. I mean, more than 10 to 15 years. Rail infrastructure, port infrastructure, shipping lines with the vessel, trucking capacities, all these things we knew, nothing brand new. It was not a surprise, but it also takes time and it takes money. So even if we would like to change it, even if we try, I mean, we as MSC, we put 20% of the capacity during last year, additional. Did you feel it? I doubt. It was not even covering the problems we were creating to you. And I believe all the other shipping lines tried as well.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you do some solution, you try to improve the situation, but you are only improving the problem, so the final receiver does not see it. And there are solutions which would help for sure. For example, if rail infrastructure all of a sudden will be sufficient for passengers and for cargo, if you could buy rail tracks whenever you need it, if you can call the port whenever you need, if you can pick up the container by truck whenever you need, but it's not the case. And it's not that we can change it. None of us, we can change it. And I believe all of us as a part of supply chain, we pushed. We pushed a lot to port, to governments, to national institutions, to big companies, to whomever we could push to help the situation. And I know that you didn't receive what you would like to receive, but I think it's important to stress that there was really huge communication towards the supply chain, which never happened before. I doubt we would sit like this here before all this situation, and we all try to find solution, regardless which port it is, which railway it is, regardless which client it is, because all of us, we were searching for solutions like you did for your clients. I mean, there are clients who booked with us who would never do that before. Well, honestly, that was the case, and it's not that we become more sexy or we had better service. They try to find solution for their final client. And what I think is important to say, we really tried. And we took so many steps. We invested a lot of money, even though it's not visible. But some of it, we are limited. Rail infrastructure, more than 50% still belongs to national institutions. So you can stress, you can ask, you can even try to give support, financial support, knowledge, know-how, but it's not enough. They have to do it. And even if they start, it takes years. And we are like 15 to 20 years behind. Here I will start the question to Petr. What about inland transportation? It's all related to it. Where the big, I was, getting there, bridging to the question. The biggest challenge and how you dealt with it.
Yeah, you have already mentioned that the problem on the inland side is beginning on the, I can see on the sea side also with this vessel delay and the vessel changing, and we must, as the inland part of the transportation, take these challenges and transport the containers as soon as possible to the clients, and that we must take on the way the problems in the ports, I can say, that is the infrastructure what you mentioned, that is one of the side. Then is the rail infrastructure problems, that means the rail reconstruction also on the way, and also the, now at this last reel, the time consuming the overcrowded ports, that they're consuming the equipment. Your equipment is consuming that you must make more as 30% more equipments for the transportation as was before.
Even more, I can tell you.
Maybe even more.
Yeah.
That they are the challenging. That we must find a new way and push on the governments, on the national states, on the make and build the infrastructure. How fast is it possible to make the transport easy? This is our goal here.
Yeah, I agree with you. And as you know, we also try to put some new tools, trucks, introduce new trains connection, but at the end of the day, you can do it to a certain extent, and then you are limited. And this is, I think, what we all feel. But also, it shows us it's the opportunity to do things a bit different and to try to create new environment. And you had, at the end of the day, you are the one who is the final mile. The one who is rail provider and truck provider is the final mile for all the clients, and you receive all the bad news and all the delays. But as you said, the average dwell time of container in Northwest continent and West ports today is 21 days. So to make it easy, my container sits 21 days in any port before it gets on rail to the depot and then delivered to you. This is nothing we want, because that means before COVID, the average cycle of container, it's counting from China when it returns back, it was 35 to 45 days, depends on the cycle. That's how you count when your equipment is available for the clients. During the COVID, we have reached 65 to 95 days of the cycle. Now it is doubled. That means we need double time to get the equipment for you. That means that we have to replace 55% of the equipment fleet. And it's not happening overnight. You cannot order container and to get it, and next to it, the average price for container is $4,500. So it's not that if you need 3.5 million for one company, 5 million for the other, 100 million for the other, it's not that easy to get it. And this is affecting all of you because when the container idle in port for 21 days, rail provider, MTO, cannot deliver it to the client, but he has the capacities for that which are empty. Port cannot move and cannot discharge the cargo and accept additional vessels because this idle container is occupying the yard. So they would like to move and get more efficient, but the port cannot do much because it's simply full and the vessels are waiting and you are not receiving the cargo for your client because it's in the port. There is no one who is really guilty. There is all of us. We are partly guilty, all of us, that's for sure, and we all have to acknowledge there is a lot we have to do. And we can do, but it's not one party. In my opinion, it's not one party. We are all part of the chain. Also, the client who was used to receive the containers 2-3 days after the discharge from the vessel, accommodated the supply chain to this short time, and they had to change as well, because you cannot expect this anymore. It's impossible. Not that we don't want to. I mean, we want to get rid of the container and deliver as soon as possible, because when it's empty, we can load it and we get another money, easy like that. We don't do it just to keep it as a storage. We want containers to be moving because then you pay. That's all we want. They want us to get rid of the from the port as soon as possible, because every new container pays handling to them. The rail provider wants us to book more and more containers on the rail because the slot cost is paid. So we all wanted to speed it up, but it's not that easy. And even though it sometimes does not look that we take care, we do. We try to move, we try to find alternatives, but we are limited. In a way, we are limited, and unfortunately, still today, the world is affected, and until the circle of container will return to some 40-45 days, we will face these issues. Some of it we have to accept as a new, this is it, this will be the fact, and from some of that we have to take the learning and change, all of us. And here I believe that as from shipping line to final client, we all can do a little bit better. And then we will see an improvement. Which leads me to more or less final question to all of you. Here I will ask all of you, if we would face a similar situation again, I mean, it looks like it's over, but it's not, but theoretically, we get rid of this shit and we will face this situation again. Would you handle it differently this time? Are we ready to do it differently? And let's go one by one.
I don't think so that we would handle differently. Just we would handle already a bit better because we are more prepared. So we learned a lot in the last 2 years. And I think that for every one of us, the focus was in the last 2 years on finding solutions, be more creative than we were in the past. And these lessons we took, and therefore I don't think it would be different. It would be just better.
Okay, nice. Martin.
Yeah, I can speak also. I was planning production there, and I would say logistic was always the how to say the bumper of the market. What's happening on the market? So I would not say we would do anything different. We would change things. In let's say maybe earlier than to predict more in the planning process, because I think nobody predict anything in this case, and that is something what nobody analyzes what can happen in the supply chain, not even the end users, the companies. So also it should start from the, let's say, the shipper, and then goes, you know, one by one, that they will predict. Also for the rail, finally, they can predict their trains and so on. So prediction for me in the logistic and planning is the essential. And we will be always facing some disruptions, but we are here for the others to be flexible and to be a bumper and to solve the situation. Even we are doing better, or sometimes we are not performing well, they need to understand that it's not easy just like this, but it's a steps, 20 steps in between that has to be harmonized together.
Good.
So I would not say we will do something better or differently, but more to be more predictable. And now this situation showed us, everyone, that we have to predict and analyze what can happen in the supply chain, and should be ready maybe to have a plan B or plan C, I don't know, but something like this.
Okay, Petr?
My opinion.
Yeah, I think I will be only repeating my previous colleagues here, that we will be not do 100% better, but we will be more ready for that. That will be more know what will be or what must be do in the advance.
I agree. Dmitry, something to add or a different view?
I'm not sure as an industry we actually want to do better. We make money when it's a chaos. I mean, this is reality.
I love the romantic way you see it.
That's what this industry been about. And can we do things better? Of course. And I think it starts with not being dependent on one market. I think the whole world look at this and realize that it's probably not very smart when you're all chips on a one number. We probably should do better as a world to diversify, to near source and do other things. But in terms of industry, I think that as much as we complain, $28,000 on the Trans-Pacific eastbound was a really nice number for lots of people. So I'm not sure how much willingness is really to change a lot of things.
I will not comment this. Gilbert?
Well, basically everything has been said already, so what can I add? But I do think that when the next hit comes, and you are not prepared, then you will fall off.
Yes.
That's something that I wanted to add.
Yeah, but I agree big time. From my perspective, we had to learn. The lesson was given to all of us, and we should be ready. That it can happen again, most likely, yes. Maybe different way, but it will happen again. That we can influence it, not really. But if we keep the learnings with us, we adjust the systems, and we get more flexible in the steps we take, then we will survive. And let's be frank, we can also make an opportunity out of this. Next to it, what I liked, it was the acceleration of digitalization. All of the sudden, I mean, even in company like us, come on, we are Stone Age. And we find we can do work from home, the whole industry. I mean, can you imagine 3 years ago somebody will say that the customer service could be done from home by a laptop? I don't know, that was new.
No.
If, is there anybody from custom clearance company? If you realize the world is new, then it's going to change completely. So I think it was a good push to some organization, good push to us as well. It forced all of us to revise the processes.
Yep.
That definitely was the cause. And the one who will learn from it and the one who will adapt to new world will survive. At the end of the day, not the strongest one is surviving, but the one who can adapt. The evolution is about adapting to the new situation. For me, what on top of all the situation, my biggest learning is, and my biggest wish also for coming year is, we need to focus back on customer service. Because what we did, and I'm sorry and apologizing to all the clients, because what we did, we really tried to do the best, but we focused to solve the situation, to solve the fire, for the most painful things, but of course we didn't have enough of room to do the proper customer service. And here, talking as a shipping line, I think we can do better. I even think we have to do better. Because now this is not new situation. We have to take it as a normal thing, and we have to find a way how to come back to good customer service. That means that few of these bottlenecks we have to get under control, to have a room and space to do it better for you. Because if we do it for better for you, you will keep on paying these lovely money, and we can invest them to infrastructure to provide you with better service. So for me, this is the biggest learning from this situation. We simply have to use the best of what we have learned and to provide you back very good service. Starting from the shipping line, port, rail infrastructure, we need to get back to good customer service, because at the end of the day, it is a client, it is you who matters to us. And I overdid it only on 1 minute. That's not bad, huh?
Perfect.
So we have final 5 minutes, which I understood is the questions time. Does anybody have any question, Jardo? Is anybody having a comment, Niku? I saw you smiling all the time.
I think it's a good sign that industry is changing. When we were in Vienna, there was a lots of questions.
Yeah.
And they were all going to MSC. We had MSC on the, so I think that...
I killed the question already
You
by
can
this
see how
comment.
market changed all of a sudden.
Yeah, because here the service is
Yeah.
good, you know?
So I think, yeah, I mean, the market is changing.
Yeah, it
and
is
certainly-
changing. It
You've
is
certainly seen it. I mean, you were just in Asia. Asia is it's a little bit scary, the way market is changing. Chinese factory is down 30% on orders. Vietnam is down 40% on volume. US just had the worst import months since COVID beginning. So I think the market is changing. So I think people are not necessarily looking for questions right now, more sitting back and
They
trying
need to
fi-
digest.
trying to figure out what's going to happen. And I think that's where we're at.
No, but you're right, the market has changed completely. We have maybe a little bit difficult year ahead, but I'm very optimistic when it comes to economy and all the stuff. We learned the best. Maybe we will not be on the high side, but we will still do better and quite okay. I'm not that pessimistic, even though when we read the newspapers, we are affected of all these things. And yes, to depend on one continent is not healthy.
Yeah.
To stand on one leg is simply not healthy. The one who will, in my opinion, win from the situation is USA. And Europe will struggle, but this will not last forever. It will change. So, and we have to get ready for this change again.
Yes.
Yep.
I think we're getting now, if you look 2 years ago when COVID started, everybody were afraid, cutting salaries, cutting stuff, and all of a sudden it was great. I think we're now where we thought we will be 2 years ago. We now get into this, and projections it's 12 to 18 months. That's what it looks like.
Okay. So thank you all. To be patient, I hope you can hear at least something. I mean, I heard about 50% was good. The 50% was good. I hope you heard the other 50% and tell me later. Thank you. And if anybody has some question, I'm sure you can find us. There is MSC booth. I didn't see it yet. I have come directly from the airport, but we have Prosecco. So I go for Prosecco. Anyone wants to join us, be my guest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Water for me?